Welcome back to another episode of the Strive for 25 podcast. I've got an amazing guest on today, Eric Wohlwend. And this gentleman is doing a million things. I don't know how he does it, but he is the host of the Real Power Family Radio Show, best-selling author, entrepreneur, business owner, and got some pretty amazing teenagers that are just killing it in the entrepreneurial space. And so we're going to be digging into some finance topics, some family and parenting topics that involve his book as well, Family Success Triangle, best-selling book. But Eric, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you, Joel. Always a pleasure to speak to a different audience.
So you've got a lot going on. First, in terms of our listeners, understanding kind of what's going on, tell us a little bit about the radio show.
Okay, so about a month ago, we started a radio show. I've been doing an awful lot of podcasts this year, and somebody famous heard it and said, wow, you guys are pretty good. And so I honestly don't know if it was my son, Devin, or myself that went on this radio station in the UK. But the host loved us and said, oh, can we get the rest of your family? I've never done that, but I'd like to interview all four of you independently. So we had 4 shows with our family. The owner of the media company heard it and said, I really would like to talk to this family. Next thing I know, maybe 3 weeks after that, we have our own radio show. And in the first 3 weeks that I have statistics for already, we've already had 1.6 million listens in a 3-week period. So we're just putting out more shows. We started with a commitment for a half an hour a week, and now they're airing us 10 hours a week, and we're creating 2 new hours. We might go up to 3 hours a week soon.
So the audience that's receiving this information from you and your family, what type of information are y'all talking about?
We are doing a variety of stuff. I have many of the people that are doing excellent. Really, what I get down to is financial freedom gives you time freedom and location freedom. And you need money to live in this world. That is very important. And if you spend 100 hours a week working and never see your family, what good is money? So people say, well, what's the balance? I'm a well-educated lawyer. I'm a doctor, fill in the blank. And I have to work all these hours, but look at how much money I have for my kids. Well, that's great. If you miss all their ball games, do you think they care about you buying another jet ski or 4-wheeler? Or do you think they'd rather see you there at their wrestling match or their tennis game or whatever you're into? So people try and balance, or they'll try and balance it in the family. And this causes a lot of stress in a lot of families. Either the lack of money because you bought Christmas presents. Oh, yeah, the other side of the story. Should I buy Christmas presents or pay my rent? I don't know. Do you want to open your presents under a bridge? I think maybe you should pay your rent. Christmas comes about the same time every year, and you ought to be able to plan for that. So we tell people that if you integrate everything in your life, don't try and balance it. There's definitely not enough time. So why can presidents, world leaders, maybe those are terrible examples, really successful people, whatever you think that is, why is it that those people have so much? And then you also see the bums begging for change. They all have 168 hours in a week. You just need to be more efficient with those hours, and you can have plenty of time to make all the money that you want and spend all the time you want with your kids. So everything we talk about comes back to that. And we have had people on that worked for GM 6 months ago. Had they still been there, they'd be on strike. And instead, this guy went from barely being able to afford an $80 hotel room to paying for a new $500,000 second home in 6 months. So yes, people complain about, is there a gap between the poor and the rich? Yes, of course there is. And it is worse than it has been many times in history, but not all. And yes, it is currently getting worse. That's not the important question. The question, is it harder to go from poor or middle class to rich today than it was 50 or 100 years ago? And the answer to that question is no. It is far easier to jump classes if you choose to do what people need to do. First, you have to think differently. You need to change your paradigm. You need to be the right person. Then you need to do what successful people do, and you can have everything that successful people have. So that is our tagline. That's what I have as a subtitle on my book. That is our phone number. If you have any questions of me, call 833-BE-DO-HAVE, and we will talk about anything important to you on the radio. And we teach people how to be there for their kids and how to be a good CEO and how to start a business. Sometimes walking away from a business. Our last guest, Josh, is a commercial airline pilot because that gave him the life he wanted. He gets these great perks. He gets to travel. He's in his actually early 20s, and he's already flying Airbuses with hundreds of people on them. And this is what is best for him in his life today. Will he do that until he's 60? I don't know. Maybe he'll get tired at 30 and move on. Maybe he'll turn that into a company. But it's not about whether you meet your parents' approval. It's not about whether you meet society's approval. It's whether you are happy with yourself and your life. That's freedom. If you can go where you want, when you want, with whomever you want, that is what we want to help everyone in the world get to.
You mentioned the thinking part of it, right? I mean, be, do, have.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of go back to the word discipline. Discipline people talk about all the time. It's like, well, talk about it. I mean, it doesn't just fall out of trees. Like you either have it or you don't. However, you can build it. You can strengthen it. You can work on it. When you're talking about thinking, what's your first pieces of advice in terms of trying to attack that part of the equation in terms of elevating your thinking?
Your mind is much weaker than your body. One of my wrestling coaches when I was in high school wrestling put that sign up in our room. And I remember laying there, not being able to breathe, getting my butt kicked by somebody. And I just read it over. And I had this discussion with one of my kids last night. It's just funny. Your mind tires so much more quickly. Get out of your conscious mind. It is weak, no matter how, especially if you're really smart. The higher your IQ, the more education you have, the more likely you are to use it as an excuse as to why to not do things. And you can really make up good excuses if you let your conscious mind take over. If you want to get over that, just shut up and do it. Just get out of your own way. You are the one holding yourself back. If I lay in bed when I wake up and I think about doing push-ups or sit-ups, I make so many excuses about why I don't feel like working out. If, however, I wake up and I'm still groggy and I just start doing sit-ups in bed without even getting out of bed, bam, I knock out 80 or 100 sit-ups. If I make a deal with myself that I am not getting out of bed, I can roll over, my hands hit the ground, my feet stay on the bed, and I knock out my push-ups. And every member of our family, I have never asked them or made them do this, but one of my friends who is much more physically fit than me, he challenged my kids to do like 50 push-ups every day. And Ethan immediately, the 13-year-old, said, yeah, I'll do 100. And he has every day for months since that happened. Now, I've been doing this every day for many years, since before they were born. And they never picked up on what I did, probably because they never saw it. I always do it the moment I roll out of bed in my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
But these are just things that you do. Should I do more physical fitness? Yes. And just like everyone else, I know that. And then I choose to say, well, I'm going to spend my time doing other things. If it were that important to me, I'd go out to the gym. I'd buy a rowing machine. I'd go for a run. I would do any of these things and just work out for an hour. But you will get what your mind chooses. And if you, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much you don't want to do it, just make a conscious decision. I am going to read. I don't care if I like to read. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to pick up a book and I'm going to stare at the pages for 30 minutes every morning before I do anything else. And guess what? You'll start reading. If you decide, wow, I really love to listen to this type of music, but what I'm going to do on the drive to work and the drive home today, because I'm tired of driving 40 minutes to get to work and 40 minutes to get home, I'm going to turn on a podcast. And I'm going to listen to Joel and see what interesting things he has to say today. And as you're doing that, you're growing your mind, you're expanding, you're learning new things from more successful people. So listen to the ones that are more successful than you. See who they had to be and what they had to do to get to where they are, and then copy them. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just emulate the most successful people you know. And they don't even need to be alive. There are so many incredible role models that have biographies or that they're showing reruns, if you will. And other podcasters are taken. They're all over YouTube. And you can see, Jim Rohn and Robert Kiyosaki every day going back to decades ago. Zig Ziglar and some of the people that started the self-development movement, if you will, they still have recordings you can get on YouTube. Why aren't you watching them rather than sitting down and watching the next series of whatever Netflix or cable show you're wrapped up in?
Yeah, the word self-development or self-help books, that's something, 10, 15, 20 years ago along my journey, I kind of pushed away out of my consciousness, something that I just didn't seem like it was for me. And as I've kind of gone further along on my journey and learned and read more and did more, I started to realize it's a tool. This is where I want to go. I have hurdles, internal hurdles that are stopping me from getting there. These are tools, these are books, these are writings, these are stories from other people that have done it, that have showing people how to get out of their own way to reach their goals. And then time, right? Like, I'm guilty of this myself. Time, like I want to be able to have results tomorrow or today or in 30 seconds. And that's just not how the stuff works. Success, wealth, it takes time to build, and it's not going to happen overnight or a week or a month or a year. And kind of going back to a conversation that we had recently, talking about, hey, I want to go take my private jet and go to this place to be able to get a dinner or a fish or whatnot. And that vision, that goal of having that type of freedom of wealth and freedom of time, when you look back, how long ago did that become a reality? When did you see that even becoming a possibility in your mind?
It has always been possible. I always knew that I would have an airplane, and it just kind of happened one day. A guy showed up and said, "Hey, I bought this thing. I think you should own half of it." And it was a Cessna 182. And wow, that was about 11 years ago. And then I traded that one for a twin engine. And then I got escorted off of a commercial flight because my understanding of medicine and rights was different than their understanding. And when they told me to put a mask on, they were serious. So got some priority deboarding and handed over to some nice gentlemen that really cared a lot about me. You could tell by how close they were standing to me, and said, "We're going to put you on the no-fly list. You'll never fly again." And I was very politely said, "Yeah, the heck you will." Said, "You can put me on any list you want. I'll buy my own airplane." So then I got a turbocharged, pressurized airplane and have flown from coast to coast multiple times this year. So that just turned out, that's freedom. I was happy. It's a heck of a lot cheaper. It's faster to go that far. And it's just not nearly as fun when you're like, "Oh, what time we leaving tomorrow?" Whenever I finish my coffee, you know. So I chose freedom many years ago, and the airplane aspect, it just fits into giving me more location freedom. I can go wherever I want, whenever I want, at the drop of a dime. I can call them now and have my airplane gassed up before I get to the airport. And then I'm good for 800 to 1,000 miles. So I guess I've always known that I could do this. And on the downside, my mother always told me, "You should read this book. You should read this." I don't need that self-help crap. That was my mantra. That was my paradigm. That was me. And I was a really good employee. I mean, I didn't make much money, but I was really good at it. Everybody liked me. I kept getting promoted, and it just didn't seem to be fulfilling my life. And I'm not sure what happened, but I finally read my first self-help book after telling everyone, "I don't need that self-help crap. I'm doing fine." And man, just like that, I'm locked. And I go to the library that day and I got more and more, and I just kept reading. And I'm listening at the time to cassette tapes while I drive 40 minutes to work 7 days a week and 40-minute drive home. I read 6.5 hours a day. I literally have no job unless there's a terrorist attack. I was just activated after 9/11. So I sit there and watch more or less fully grown adults open and close a gate. And as long as no terrorists show up, I have nothing to do. I make a phone call to make sure it works once an hour. And so I just immersed myself in all of these greats and what they had learned and decided, hey, when that deployment had ended, I'm going to do this real estate thing. And 2 years later, I had enough money coming in from my real estate. I never need to work again. And I started with less than $10,000. So all I had going for me was good credit and the knowledge that I got from reading books. No fancy seminars, no mentors. Over the course of the first year or so, I learned about seminars and started going. I learned about mentors and convinced some to work with me. But it really just started with picking up the first book. And
What was that first book?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And now we've got a list of all these books. If you go to my website, clearskytrainer.com or realpowerfamily.com, go to the same place. And it's under announcements. I list some of the most important books that influenced our life. And every member of my family now has best-selling books out. In fact, Devin, the 16-year-old's third book is coming out in a week and a half. So this might not even be live before it comes out. That comes out November 2nd. And we try to pass on the information that we got that helped us to get here. But we started out, I don't know where you guys are starting. I'd like to say, like everybody else, I went to school. I got good enough grades. I went to Kent State, so nothing spectacular. I got my degree in pre-med, and right before I went to med school, I went in search of my life. I don't know what I was thinking then. And I realized, yeah, before I take on all this huge amounts of debt to become a doctor and not make any money for another 4 years, if I got out of school now, my degree doesn't really do anything for me other than get me into medical school. It's just pre-med zoology. But it did get me a job teaching anatomy and physiology in high school for a year, which paid me a whopping $23,700 with that college degree. And I realized, man, I'm glad I went out and got shot at in the Army, so they paid for most of it for me. But yeah, that whole thing that I was taught my whole life wasn't working out for me. Go to school, get a degree, get a good job, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to question it. And then I started questioning more and more things. And then I started reading these books that expanded my mind. And then I started listening to CDs, cassettes, now podcasts. And it is amazing how much easier it is to get the information. You wouldn't believe what I went through just 20, 25 years ago to get information that you can have at the snap of your fingers. It is all right there on your favorite podcast app. There is a website for everything. There's a YouTube video for everything. You can listen to it. You can watch a video. You can read it. There's a movie made about it for most of the stuff. And it's all out there. But only you can do something with it. You actually have to take it and apply it in your life. And that is one of Devin's favorite things to teach is you have to be creative, think outside of the box, and then you have to take action. All the knowledge in the world is useless unless you actually put it to use.
That's why I love the opportunity to have this conversation with you, because you've gone through this journey yourself, right? Real estate, business, books, education to help others. And then here you are, you've got teenage sons that have best-selling books. And I think you used the word millionaire for one of them in our last conversation.
Yep. The
And
one became a millionaire at 15. The other one's not quite there yet without ever getting $1 from me.
So we're talking about, okay, you did this, and then being able to pass some of these insights, these mindsets, these, ways of thinking onto other people, in this case, your kids. And I kind of stopped there for a second because I know a couple other people that have done really well in real estate, and they've got courses and workshops and making all this money selling the information. But they're pretty much a one-trick pony. They got in when rates were low in 2020. They built something massive, which is good for them. Great. You use what you got. And that's all they got, right? They haven't really, they don't have this kind of full tool belt or spectrum of ways to be able to pivot, because markets change. You have to be able to adapt. And here you are going backwards in time, getting into real estate, building all these businesses, and then passing this information on to other people. And then these people, your kids, for example, implementing and then seeing success, seeing this kind of come full circle. And that's the stuff that gets me pumped up, because at the end of the day, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. And in your book, you have your triangle of kids, investment, and business, and then also a chapter that talks about motivation. And it's like, you can't make somebody do something, right? So what then? How do you take that gap and help the other person fill it?
In the Army, I was an instructor. We used to always say stupid things like false motivation is better than no motivation at all. And the thing is, it works. So you can't necessarily change your emotional state. Just look at your wife when she's sad or she's mad. What chance do you have of changing that? Nothing. She may or may not be able to make a decision, but it might be too much for her to handle because it's hard to change your emotional state. It is easy to change your physical state. Just going from being furious and smiling and forcing yourself to smile. Ethan is good at this. He uses music and just wrote an essay about this yesterday about how music can change his mood. So do some of the exterior things that get you in the mood that motivates you. Okay. I don't want you to turn off. Say you love the movie Rocky. Well, don't take off in the middle of the workday and watch Rocky. That's not productive. But taking 2 minutes to listen to Eye of the Tiger, that song brings back all those great memories. Yeah. And it motivates you. Figure out what it is that motivates you. It might just be as easy as sitting there looking at your baby play in the playpen for a minute or two. It might be just having a picture of your wife you carry around on your phone or in your wallet, right? Find something that makes you happy. Pull back out of whatever problem that you are experiencing, and then focus on that happiness. Once you change your physical being, you can change your mental. When you change your mental, you can change your emotional. So hit it from every angle, right?
And kind of going backwards in time, right? I mean, you were sharing that you were bringing your sons to some of the workshops and seminars, and bringing them along with the journey, the entrepreneurial journey, exposing them to some of the real estate stuff. Can you kind of dig deeper on that for our audience about, your beliefs on kind of transferring some of these insights to your kids as they are growing up?
So everything in our life is integrated, and people love to hear about owning airplanes and being a millionaire and all this stuff. That's not the key. The key is being with your family. And like I said, you have to have the family time and the money, because what good is family if you're sleeping under a bridge? And what good is money if you never get to see your family? Not because I was a genius, I just didn't have a clue what I was doing. Like a lot of brand new parents. People love to see the results that I get. And let me ask you, have you ever done a rehab?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have done more than 1,000 rehabs and repositioned. You want to know how to get to where I am? Go out and don't get in a fight. Don't murder your family members. Don't freak out and yell and scream and be miserable. Do you know how many marriages are broken up over a rehab or a tenant that destroys a house? Do you know how many marriages and families are broken up over a lack of money? You've got to find a way to deal with the stress. And imagine if your wife, it was my wife, not me, said, hey, we've got this warehouse. It's an empty shell with no heat and no plumbing. I think we should move out of our apartment and into the warehouse and save $400 a month. And we slept there, which was fine in Ohio in May. 6 months later, it's Christmas time, and we're still sleeping there, and we've got a ventless gas heater hooked up. Where the gas line comes out, I'd put the gas line in for the stove. So we don't have a kitchen, but at least I have a gas line running that far, and I had a ventless gas heater there. She slept on that side of the twin mattress, laying on the ground. And then I had a kerosene heater on my side that ran out of gas somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m., depending on where we lit it and how high it was. And I'd get cold enough that I'd wake up, and it might be 40 to 44 degrees inside our home. And that is how we were living 23 years ago. So I'm not saying you need to go through that much pain, but what are you willing to do? Are you willing to give up your rent money and move out of your nice little apartment to sleep in your rehab, if that's what it takes to have that extra $400 to buy materials so you can fix it up? And it's not like we went out and bought a bunch of pet food. We didn't buy a bunch of beer and cigarettes. We didn't go to Disneyland for sure. We put that extra money into fixing it up. And the knowledge that we got out of that allowed us to do more than 1,000 more rehabs. I am now working in the office. Fast forward, it's 2007. There were some interesting things happening in the real estate market then. I knew I was brilliant. You should have just asked me. I was as smart as a 16-year-old boy. And so I was like, yeah, I'm finally a millionaire. I can do all this stuff. And we had this plan to buy a nice house in a better school district by the time we had a child and that child turned 5. Now we still don't have a child. Well, in 2007 we did, but in 2005 we didn't have a child. And we found our dream home, which in the plan of life was 2 steps forward. And we just thought, oh, we got to buy it. We might never get another chance. So we spent way more money than we had buying a home. And that was right after we had just bought 2 brand new vehicles, which I totally needed a new full-size pickup truck. Probably didn't need the luxury edition, but it's not like we were buying sports cars. We were using these for work. So she got an SUV. I got the big pickup truck so we could haul everything. That was great for running the construction company. Oh, well, did I forget to mention how rich and smart I was? A timeshare in Vegas sounded like a good idea, and hey, they financed it. Next thing you know, it's such a good deal. You can buy a house for $15,500. How do you pass that up? Well, you don't have any money and need cash. All right, just put it on a credit card. And so 2007 rolls around. I put 50 grand on a credit card for education. I bought a house or 2 on a credit card. I picked up all these extra expenses, and I wake up one morning, and even though I had a net worth of well over $1 million, my cash flow was massively negative. I was spending $23,000 a month more than I brought in. And Devin was born. So here we are, 2007, the real estate market starts to fall apart. And I have a brand new baby, all these expenses, and just took basically a year off spending money and not making money. I immediately identify my problems. I managed to make it through without ever being a day late on any payment. And some of the things we did is we're working 16, 18 hours a day. We work in the office 4 days a week. And 3 days a week, I've got a new 8 unit we closed on when Devin was 2 weeks old. So there I am. My contractors are getting behind. And by that time, I was hiring just about everything out. They were so far behind, we had to catch them up. So we would go put in 18 hours a day, Friday through Monday. And I would finish up whatever electrical needed done after the electrician was in there. He cut holes through all the walls because we had ripped out boilers and put in electric baseboard heat so we could charge the tenants for the heat. And I'm cutting off boiler pipes and hauling stuff down and redoing the drywall and learning how to use 20-minute mud so I can get 3 coats on it in a day. And then I get done with that, and my wife comes in and she does all the painting the next weekend. And then over the week, we have somebody deliver. They install all the flooring and they deliver the appliances. And every week we were turning one of these apartments into another livable apartment. And that's what we had to do. We fell back. We didn't Everybody said, well, I don't have the money. Well, we didn't have the time. I knew time was more important than money. We had to get these going and rented. So we pushed through that. And at the same time, Devin is laying in his pack and play, just a couple of months old. He is on the job site with us every day. I mean, what are we going to do? Hire a babysitter or something? We just take him with us, stick him in an apartment where we're not sanding drywall or running compressors or whatever. He starts sleeping better when there's a compressor running because he's so used to the noise there. And my wife is playing Blair Singer tapes. And awesome. Sales Dogs is his book. He was a Kiyosaki advisor. Really great guy. Actually from the same small town I'm from, although I didn't know that until many years later. And he has got to be one of the best sales trainers out there. And in his tapes, he has dogs barking at the beginning. And we would hear Devin barking the same way the dogs did, because at every section, it played the same song, if you will, of dog. So we know he's listening and absorbing something, even if he doesn't understand the words.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere we drove, we jump into my car and he is 2 or 3. And he's like, more John Galt, Dad, more John Galt. And so
at 3?
At 3, he was so into the story of Atlas Shrugged. Now he just got a license plate thing that says, who is John Galt? And it's at least his second time, not just listening to it with me, but of reading the book straight through. And he's actually doing the audio version. But he brought it over and he's like, oh, yeah, we're in the valley with Francisco. You want to hear this part? And we sat outside on the patio and listened for a half an hour to that section. And this is what the 16-year-old is doing. He just grew up with more intellectual books. And people say you need to read to your kid or you need to talk to them. They don't care. If you're into football, talk about football. And they'll probably know a lot about football. My children, they know virtually nothing about sports because I know nothing about sports. I can't tell you who the quarterback is for the team closest to me right now.
Which is who? Which team is closer
to the Browns?
Okay, so you're closer to Cleveland. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is just not important to me. If these things are important to you, your kids are going to see that because they're always learning from you, whether you want to teach them or not. Look at what you were doing and you will see what your kids are going to learn.
Damn.
If I am out there learning, then my kids are going to learn what I'm learning. And when I realized they actually were asking me questions about like intensive business related things. And they understood it at maybe a 4-year-old level, but there was some understanding there. They actually were kind of following. Then I would answer them. And they asked me questions and I told them, hey, why is the sky blue? Well, because it's due to the refraction of light going through the water molecules in the air. And they're like, oh, Dad. I said, the way there's water in the air. And I'd break it down on a 4th grade level. So you know how you can make water evaporate? If you just let it set out, it kind of goes away. That goes up into the air. And as the light shines through it, it makes it bend because of the shape of the molecule. What's it? Just water's shape. It actually has a shape. Okay. And when light hits it, it bounces back, just like if you reflect something. Oh, okay. So I started breaking stuff down at the most basic level. And I realized if I can do that for organic chemistry and physics, and I'd have old models that we used putting together things in organic chemistry in college. Well, they're playing with toys and Lincoln Logs and Legos and stuff anyways. It wasn't much different to put these together and bam, now I can teach you why carbon makes 4 bonds and why oxygen has 2. And these are some of the things just because I needed a toy and didn't have it. So I grabbed this little green box I had left over from college and said, oh, let's play with these. And it turned into a learning lesson. And so the kids learned that. And next thing you know, Devin decides he wants to go to college. I said, all right, well, let's go. He goes, what now? I said, yeah, why not? He goes, because I'm 12. So, well, I'll take you in. You pass a test and we'll get you enrolled in school. And so he has been in college since he was 12. And just one course. I mean, he took a nice, easy college physics course for his first one.
Okay.
And now he's in, legal laws and real estate or something like that. I don't know. But he wants to take over the real estate brokerage, which is another one of our multiple companies. And you need to have an associate's degree, at least, maybe even a bachelor's, I don't know anymore, to get your broker's license. And you don't really need to be the broker to own a brokerage, but it's kind of handy
Yeah.
as a fallback, even if you're not working in that job, if you just have the license. So he decided, well, I might as well knock this out now. But he's 16 and in his third year of school, taking 3 college classes. He works about 30 hours a week as the COO. So he completely runs the real estate brokerage. I go in there about every 2 weeks. And really, I see the stats pop up on my computer as soon as I open up the appropriate program. And I know right down to the second of where we stand. And as long as they're good, he's just in charge. And if not, I say, what's going on? Why so many move outs? So yes, children can learn anything. And that's just what they did growing up. It seemed normal. So I bet you're at the age where you're playing memory with your kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
5 years old.
Yeah. They just turned 4. So
Just turned 4.
yeah, like what some of the things that they love to do, like, the grandparents or other family members, hey, we're gonna bring some toys or buy some toys for a birthday. That's not like, okay. They love Spidey and Amazing Friends. There's Spidey, there's Ghost Spidey, and then there's Spinach. There's 3 of them. And they have a Spidey HQ that was gifted to them. And we have all these toys, not enough places to store them. Everything's getting more expensive. Let's do something creative. So we just started building Spidey HQs out of the Amazon boxes and construction paper and tape, and started building stuff. And they absolutely love it. Daddy, when can we make the next HQ? Let's do this one. That's that one. It's like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So it's little stuff like that.
Devin still loves Legos. And that's dangerous. A millionaire kid that can buy all the Legos he wants. It's like buy a house to store him in.
Right.
But no, he sat down at actually slightly younger than your kid's age. Now tell me, do they come in and say, Daddy, can we play when you're sitting there at that desk trying to work?
Mm-hmm.
Because my kid's standing right here, right beside me, and says, Dad, we play. Thinking, I just need another cup of coffee. I got to get these accounts reconciled. And how cool is it to sit in Dad's office chair, right? Here, you could be a big boy. Sit up here. And I look at him, and he's got his toy computer out there with the fake mouse. I'm like, you know how to use a computer. You want to play and do what Daddy does? He's like, yeah, let's do that. I said, great. It's just like your memory game. I hand him a banking statement. I said, here, you know your numbers. He's like, yeah. I said, well, read the numbers here and then find them on the screen. And if you find them, you put a little click by them. And then when you get down to the very bottom, if you clicked all the right stuff, the bottom number will be 0. And I point to it where it is. I said, if that's 0, you win, and I'll take you out for ice cream. And so I go and get coffee, figuring, what could he mess up, right? It's QuickBooks. He's just hitting a reconciliation, maybe closing it out, and I got to start over. No big deal. He did it. And Matt, I was like, oh, well, now you got to find the deposits on this side. And he did that. And we taught him how to reconcile a couple of easy accounts, because I have one for every one of my 18 businesses. Some of them have a couple accounts. Then you have your personal accounts, and you have your credit card. I have a lot of reconciliations that need done every month. And so he learned how to do that at like 3 years old. And by the time I got good at it, I started paying him for it because I didn't believe that he should work. So if you live in my house, it is your duty to do the dishes or mow the yard or whatever it is you are capable of doing that is more or less age appropriate. And if you work for my business, I would have had to hire a bookkeeper anyways. I should be paying you the amount that I would pay a bookkeeper if you can get the same amount as that bookkeeper gets done. If you do a third as much, you get paid a third as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I start paying him, and next thing I know, the kid's like 6, 8, 10, and he is better at this than some of the professionals I hire. And I see a 45-year-old with a college degree sitting there, and a 14-year-old walks in and says, it's way faster if you do it that way. And he doesn't want to overstep his bounds. He's incredibly polite. He has never, ever been the boss's son. Everybody knows he'd be the first one to get thrown out. He steps in and takes all the responsibility, and people, the first time my wife took him to work in her real estate office, I work from home, so nobody's here, but she actually has a whole staff that comes into the office. And I said, how did they take it when you had like a 6 or 7-year-old in your office? They said they love it. He emptied the trash. Everyone hates filing. And how hard is it to file? You're just, working on your alphabet or your numbers, depending on what you're filing. And they couldn't wait. They didn't have to do any of the filing. They'd let him build up, and he'd just sit there and have fun. And then if they said, oh, I need something from reception, he'd run out and get it from reception and give it to the bookkeeper. And she's like, here, take this to app processing. And he'd run a couple rooms away and give that to app processing. And they never had to stand up. They could just work straight through and get stuff done quicker and go home earlier. So they love.
Question for you. So let's say Devin, which he's done, he's given speeches before, right? He's been in rooms and done speeches, right? The 16-year-old
in front of
thousands of people. So if there's an audience member out there listening to this, and let's say they've got a 18-year-old or a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old, somewhere in this kind of, teens to 20s range, and this person that is listening has a W-2 job, maybe they're making $15 an hour, $20 an hour, whatever the kind of, middle to lower range of income. And the question becomes, hey, how do I go from here at this point to be able to march up and try to march towards financial independence, financial freedom? Let's say I go get Rich Dad, Poor Dad, maybe a couple other books. What other advice would Devin be providing, or what types of tools or lanes or industries could help somebody get closer to that goal?
Devin would tell you, read my first nonfiction book. If I can do it, so can you. How I started buying real estate at age 7. That is the book I always wanted to write. It's very simple. Get started here. If you're into real estate, he talks about how he got loans, because obviously I didn't sign for any bank loans for him. I didn't give him any money. He used his creativity and a couple $100 to get the first down payment, pulled money out of that, and got the next one and the next one and the next one. He couldn't go out and refinance at 4% like you could during this last interest rate cycle. And now rates are going way up. And he just bought another $1,000 in Bitcoin a couple days ago, right before it spiked over 10%, by the way. He invests in gold and silver and Bitcoin and has 46 different properties. So how did he get started with that? 46 units, not properties. Let me be accurate. He wrote that book to describe how he got started. And I hate it when people come on, well, just buy my book. Look, I can't tell you everything. We have 15 minutes left, maybe. I will give you the best advice I can. Listen to podcasts, listen to audio books, read for at least a half an hour to an hour every morning, no matter what. Keep yourself fit. Nobody cares if you're obese and can't get out of bed, if you're eating more ho-hos and Twinkies and you have diabetes. How good is your life if you don't have your health? So do something, even if it's insignificant. Walk a little bit more. And while you're walking, listen to a podcast or a radio show. You can listen to this one with Joel. You can listen to the Real Power Family Radio Show on the Brushwood Media Network and every podcast network. You can listen to Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Radio Show. Anything that takes you to where you want to be. If you want to be more spiritual, then listen to a podcast. Maybe you want to listen to a preacher. while you're walking. I have people that work for me that do that, and that pumps them up and gets them motivated. If you want to listen or you want to be in better shape, then go to the gym, walk on a treadmill, run, whatever it is that you're doing there while you have earbuds in, and you can still be learning, doing two things at once. So if you haven't figured it out yet, keep learning and don't learn from the wrong people. Learn from people, preferably that have been through, if you're looking at business in any way, been through at least one cycle. If they haven't been through a downturn, if they weren't actively in business in 7, 8, 9, 10, people that got started in 2010 or 11, they have no idea what life might be like in 2024. It has been wild. So listen to people that have actually done something for a while and the people that do something that you want to do. And then look and say, yeah, that's awesome. They have so much money and their family life sucks. They're all over the tabloids. Maybe don't make them their hero. Find somebody. It doesn't matter what you believe in. Maybe your religion is going to the gym and working out, and that's all you care about. Maybe it's, growing your business. Maybe it's God, Jesus, Allah, the Great Spirit, Zeus, whatever it is. You need some type of integrated balance to be a well-rounded person, and it deals with your body, your mind, your emotions, or your soul. I have found every successful person talks about all of these. You can't just do one. So get yourself or keep yourself healthy. Make sure no matter how hard you're working at this, you're spending time with your family. Make sure that you're constantly learning and growing your mind, because if you knew what you needed to know today, you would already be where you wanted to be. So when you go out and get this new knowledge, then implement it. It doesn't do you any good to learn it and not take action. If you read a book, don't read another book and another book. Find a way to take action on the first one and then go on to the second one. If you want to buy a house, write an offer. It doesn't happen without that. If you don't know how to write an offer, call a realtor. They can't wait to write one for you. If you don't know what a house is worth, don't trust Zillow. Figure out, I got to get real comps. Real comps are things that have actually sold in the last 6 months or a year. Not what they're listed for, not what a realtor or a salesman wants to tell you they're worth, what they actually are worth. And definitely not your friend that just got a real estate license that's never sold anything. Ignore that one. Find somebody who's been doing this for many years and take advice from them.
So Devin owns 46 units,
Correct.
right? And when did he buy the last set of units? What year?
He has one under contract right now.
Okay. I mean,
so
but prices are going to crash. Rates are high. This is a bad time to buy real estate, right?
No. Let's see. Prices are not going to crash. This is not 2007 again. The world, it never completely repeats itself. It does rhyme. Okay. If you want to read a really incredibly long, boring book, it is really good and packed full of information and has hundreds of pages of citations by 2 Nobel Prize winners, Rinkert and Rogoff. Go read This Time Is Different. Or I can sum it up for you. No, it's not. And we have hundreds of years of proof to show you it's not. Okay. We had a massive oversupply of housing in 2007. We did not build housing for 10 years. I live in the Midwest. So do you. Let's exclude a handful of cities. Okay. We can throw out a good portion of Texas and Florida, Las Vegas, and both coasts, New York, Chicago, throughout the rest of the normal country. With those exclusions, real estate prices went down, but they even went down there. We didn't build any more for the next decade, so to speak. Go to any county and figure out how many building permits were pulled. And you can see we built very few housing units. We had a massive oversupply of retail. People quit going to the malls. When we were kids, we'd go walk around the mall, and that was a cool thing to do. Nobody goes to the mall anymore. They walk into a store and straight back to their car, or they just buy it online somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a massive problem in real estate, which I talked about trends in commercial real estate a couple episodes ago in my show. And then you throw in COVID shut everything. Well, the government shut everything down during COVID, and people realized, I don't need an office building anymore. I can do this from home. So now we have a massive oversupply of offices. We have a massive oversupply of retail. Would I buy any of those today? Absolutely not. At some price, I would, but not at the prices we're having. Residential real estate, however, in virtually every city with 30,000 people or more, so we're talking pretty small cities, most of them have a shortage of residential units. You can't, if you don't have any supply and you have too much demand, even let's say we had no more immigration. Let's say all these illegal immigrants went away, if you're in that political persuasion. We still don't have enough housing units. And imagine all of these people coming in, what we're going to need. So no, I am very bullish on residential real estate. Will our rents? Yes, the rents have to mellow out and maybe even go down a little bit. I don't think they'll go down much. But we just looking at supply and demand and demographics, we need more, and especially more that is accessible to the elderly. We have far too many baby boomers without places to live that they can afford. If you find a way to get a ranch that is moderately affordable, then it's never going to go empty.
Okay.
So there's a lot of aspects of real estate.
That's the one thing I talk about too, is that, like, yes, we know where things are right now, right? But we don't know what it means in a year or two or three. And people 5 years ago are regretting not buying. And I've got a client right now that came to me in 2020 wanting to buy, and every single year we talked and had an excuse of why they didn't buy, and here they are, thinking about buying again. It's like, okay, real estate, long-term, it's not a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing, and there's only a limited amount of it out there. Then we could talk hours about this stuff. I know we're running out of time.
Let me sum it up. If
Yeah.
you believe that the government's going to take care of you, good luck. If you are sitting there, don't tell me what is going to happen. Don't tell me what is mandatory spending. Don't tell me what's fair. Seriously, you really think the world's fair? If so, good luck. Look at your personal IRA, your personal 401k. How many dollars do you have in there? How much money do you bring in every year working? If you make $50,000 a year and you have $500,000 set aside in your IRA, and you actually control it, so you understand what's going on with it, you don't just blindly hand it over to a fund manager, which is what way over probably 90% of the people do, then you're at the whim of the stock market that could crash again. But let's say you actually had $500,000. Well, guess what? In 7.2 years, the buying power of that is going to be cut in half. So if you retire 7 years from now, you will have the equivalent of $250,000 in today's standards. You only make 50 grand a year. So that means if the way you live today for 5 more years. If you turn 65 and retire 7 years from now, by the time you're 70, you're going to be out of money. Do you want to die at 70, or what's your plan? If your plan is to live off of Social Security, look at your statements and what you bring in. Did you know that if you just bought 3 single-family homes in the Midwest today and paid them off and never made a penny, you just took every penny that came in and paid them off, and you had them paid off in 12 to 15 years, you would have more money coming in net from those 3 houses than the vast majority of people will ever collect in a month from Social Security. Tell me, have you ever met a guy that said, wow, I really wish I wouldn't have bought this house 5 or 10 years ago? I wish I would have waited till now when they were cheaper. Have you ever heard that in your whole life?
No.
No. Even when houses went down, and I owned all these in 2007. I think by 2010, I had about 75 units, and I bought my first 50 unit in 2010. And it was a really good price. And you know what? The only reason I had the guts to buy that 50 unit is because I already owned 75, and it was still really stretching me. I almost doubled my size in one acquisition. If you think you're going to wait and get started and go out and buy anything significant, you're wrong. If we do get really good deals, you're going to buy one little house and you're going to mess it all up because everybody does on their first deal. That's just the way it goes. And then you're going to learn and you're going to do way better your next one. And better than that, your next. You're not perfect. You're not in grade school anymore. You're going to mess things up, accept it, and move on. When you do enough of them, then you get the motivation, the guts. You're willing to take the risk, call it whatever you want, to buy a bigger thing. And you buy that bigger thing. How long does it take you? Look at your past history. How long did it take you to build up? Because I bought my first house, and 2 years I got lost 3 jobs. I have one rental property. The tenants just moved in for the first time. It was barely fixed up and they moved in. I bought 19 more in less than 2 years and had enough money coming in to retire. And my risk threshold might be differently than yours because I spent the 4 years before that jumping out of airplanes, blowing things up, and fixing broken people. I was in combat before I was legally old enough to drink. So if you're willing to go out and take these chances and continue to learn and grow, and you're willing to bet your life on it, then it's easy to bet your money on it.
Mm-hmm.
If, however, you have to second guess and overanalyze everything, buy a house today. It's never going to be the perfect market. It's never going to be the perfect interest rates. And if interest rates crater in the future, go refinance.
And then prices will be X amount percentage higher.
Right. But nobody regrets buying a house 10 years ago. Yeah. All you have to do is survive for that 10 years. So when you buy one, make sure it cash flows. At a minimum, it breaks even. And I mean, if you're bringing in a couple $100,000 a year and you can take the loss, great. As long as you know it's going to lose money and you're just doing that to pay it off more quickly, so it makes money. But real estate is there to make money. So make sure that it is actually making cash flow when you buy it.
I think Warren Buffett has a story, when he, had a person that he went to college with, and the guy was smarter, better grades, whatever, and then got wealthy. And then he describes it, we were in different boats. Like he went into a boat that was building, higher level businesses and this, whatever. And that person just kind of did their job and that's it. And it's like, once you get into the game, understand it. Maybe you fail the first time, probably, like you said, you probably will. But you said you couldn't have done the 50 unit until you've already been in the game and got to 75. You wouldn't have taken that chance. Like you can't get to that point unless you get into the game. And it's like, once you buy the first one, you're in a new boat. You're in a boat, the real estate boat. And then where it goes from there is just all about input and getting in the game. Just, you got to find one way to get in the game.
Joel, I decided I am going to go run and break the record. I'm going to break the world record for the 1 mile run. Now, I am overweight, out of shape, and was terrible on high school track. But I just decided I wanted to do that. That is the way I look at some of these people. I'm afraid to take any risk. I am determined to do it exactly my way, even though the people that do this every day say that doesn't work. But no, I want it to work that way. I deserve for it to work that way. Somebody owes this to me. I'm telling you, I can want to break the world record for the 1 mile as much as I want. I can dream about it every day, and it's just never going to happen. Maybe if I went to the track and ran every day of my life for years, I could do that. Although it's unlikely that a 50-year-old is going to break it, but at least I would have a chance. Sitting here wishing and wanting are never going to get me anywhere until I take action.
That's so true. I know you got to run. I want to recap the links in the books. So where can people find you? The radio show again?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram, Real Power Family. We are realpowerfamily.com. We've got mentoring if you're into that. Really just start with reading books. Don't spend money until you're actually taking action, and then you can hire somebody to help you. And the Real Power Family radio show is on the Brushwood Media Network. It's on virtually every podcast. You can go to wherever and either type in Real Power Family or Brushwood Media and then Real Power Family, and you'll find us.
The one thing that I wanted to say out loud that I didn't mention before is that I love in the book how you give your perspectives on things. Your wife gives perspectives on similar things in each chapter, and you break it down, and the kids do too. And it just gives this just full variety, full angles, because a family is a family, right? You're having multiple
Right.
people bring their energy in to make things work. And so I love it. I can't wait to check out more of your content on all these channels as well. Looking forward to it.
Well, that was the Family Success Triangle. You can get that on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're interested in how we made our kids so successful, that's what that book is about. How we started, grew, and still run 18 different businesses, as well as raised our children and homeschooled the entire time. So that's the Family Success Triangle. And if you don't like what I'm saying here, but you think we're getting good results, read my wife's take on it. She comes across wildly differently and is much more passive and nice to tell you all the same things I say.
Awesome. Awesome. I can't wait to check out more of your stuff, as I mentioned before. But Eric, thank you so much for making time, and I'll have to catch up very soon.
Thank you. Have a great day, Joel.
Thanks, Eric. Bye.